So the in-game timer in Granblue Fantasy Relink is really whack. So much so that it is possible to beat Pyet-A in 30 seconds with the strategy that we are currently going to be employing in this video. As of right now, I believe this is the absolute fastest strategy you can find. I could not find anything faster. The time on the speedrun website is only 43 seconds, and that also even bans Fairy, Rackham, and Lancelot to only one of each, and we don't even use any of those characters, funnily enough, and the fastest I could find besides that using Double Fairy was 34 seconds. So this is probably going to be the absolute fastest you can find right now. If there is something faster, I do apologize. But regardless, I do want to kind of give some commentary about how this works and how we were able to accomplish this task. So the main party dynamic here is Vasaragi, Io, Vane, and Percival, and I would say for this specific strategy, all four of these characters were pretty much essential. So the main idea is that the timer stops around 60% when he activates Firefly. Now, there's a couple nuances to this, because if he activates Overdrive, that wastes some time before he jumps to the center and activates Firefly, and if you don't do enough damage fast enough, he will activate Overdrive and do a completely different attack instead of activating Firefly at all. This means that Io's paralysis and also her burst damage is going to be pretty essential here, because she needs to paralyze at the exact moment right before Overdrive happens, so he never goes into the Overdrive phase, so you can do enough damage to get him that 60% threshold before that Overdrive activates, and he can immediately go into the center and activate this ability, this Firefly, that stops the in-game timer entirely. Other forms of crowd control could potentially work here, but I think Io is going to be the best bet, because Io has a bunch of burst damage that you can use very early on in fights, which is going to be very helpful and essential. Vasaragi and Percival are also here to do a lot of damage early to make sure we can reach that threshold, that 60% threshold, really quickly so I can jump to the center as fast as possible. Percival, especially with the rotor bug, is really important to activate after the paralysis to make sure we get to that threshold and he never activates Overdrive. Vasaragi here does a little bit less damage immediately compared to Percival, but what he makes up for is the fact that you can immediately build up the SBA gauge during this phase with the Undying ability by standing in the damage field and immediately getting SBA based on that, so you're able to immediately activate SBA when this phase ends. So, Vasaragi does a lot of damage. You're using his charge attacks as well, so that's also really important to take advantage of and use also. Vane is here because Vane can immediately perfect dodge the first attack of Firefly and set up a bubble in the middle, so the rest of the team can build up their SBA gauge a lot easier as well, so that they have their SBA for the second part of this fight, so Vane and Percival themselves can activate SBA after the Vasaragi and Io SBA that starts this phase off here. And then after this, the timer will ideally stay paused. We lost a second here and ended up getting a 30 instead of a 29, as you can hear me complaining about in the background there. But Vane and Percival, they activate their SBA here at the end here, and we just kind of end the fight and use Vasaragi and Percival's damage to finish off the rest of the fight here, because they are the two highest consistent damage dealers in the game right now, and that is kind of just basically the major strategy here. This is something my friend group came up with. I do think it's a pretty effective strategy. We were able to get a lot of 30, 31, 32-second runs with doing this strategy. We weren't quite able to get that 29-second run, but I do think that is definitely a possibility with the current strategy that we are using right now. But I did want to upload this and kind of just showcase the strategy since people were asking about it. And I also just kind of want to showcase some speed kills for this game, since I haven't really done any content like that for this yet. It may be possible to use a different lineup of characters, but I do think Vasaragi being able to immediately get SBA thanks to Undying is one of the main things that makes the strategy work, and he also does a lot of damage, so I don't know if he is replaceable. Io is really important for the burst damage and the paralysis. The Vane bubble is really good for building SBA on other characters, especially the Percival itself also. And Percival just does a lot of really high damage, especially with the Werble bug in the game right now that just allows like a free 10 million damage like after the paralysis. So I don't know if anything's replaceable right now, but this is just kind of the current setup. And here is my specific setup. My partners recorded their points of view as well, and they have videos with their setup as well. But mine's not that much different than you might expect here. I'm only running 2 supplementary damage. That's all I could really fit. But I got enough RNG rolls that it didn't really matter, and we were still able to get the damage that we needed there. Like I said, though, the in-game timer is really whack, so we may move to more RTA-based timers in the future, just because that was still 2.5 minutes RTA, just taking advantage of mechanics that pause the in-game timer as much as possible to get the world record for this. So I think it's going to cover it for this video, though. I do hope you learned something, and if you did, please look forward to all my future content. I make guides for this game. I make guides on characters. I plan to cover all future content that comes out, so if you want to see more content on Relink, please be sure to subscribe. Support me any way you can. I would appreciate it. Have a wonderful and blessed day, and enjoy this last blooper. Star! Psych! Psych! Where'd he go? No!
Bro, TC started the perfect run.
Did he actually DC? There's no way! There's no way!